All right, so picture this. It's 1948. The world's kind of still catching its breath after the war, And on a beautiful, sunny Australian beach, a man is found dead.
Not just dead, though.
Right. Not just dead. He's posed, like someone carefully arranged him.
Deliberate.
Exactly. And that's just the tip of the iceberg in the Somerton Man case. We're diving into this Wikipedia article, and let me tell you, this one's got more twists and turns than like a Hitchcock movie.
He'll have you hooked.
So imagine, you're walking along Somerton Beach, December 1st, just after the sun comes up.
Face full.
Right, and you see a guy leaning against the seawall, head resting back, almost like he's asleep. But he's not breathing. No identification, no wallet, no nothing.
And that's what gets you right off the bat. It's not just that he died, it's the staging of it all. The complete lack of any ID.
It screams mystery, right?
Screams it.
And then there are the little things. They find a half-smoked cigarette resting on his collar. Did he drop it? Did someone put it there?
Intentional.
Right. And then he's got a bus ticket, used. But he's also holding an unused train ticket to Henley Beach. So why buy it if he wasn't going to use it? It's like every little detail just adds another layer of weirdness.
It's like a puzzle where the pieces don't quite fit, and then weeks later it gets even weirder. They find a suitcase.
The suitcase. Okay, talk about a mixed bag of clues. You've got your everyday things like pajamas, a razor.
Mundane.
Totally. But then, bam, sharpened tools like he was some kind of handyman carrying around a mobile workshop, an electrician's screwdriver, a knife, but it's been filed down to a point, and get this, a stenciling brush. Like what a sailor would use.
It's almost as if someone wanted to obscure their identity but also leave a trail.
Okay, so that lack of identification, except for that name Keene, it's like, did he just forget to pack his ID? Or is it something more deliberate?
Right, because you don't just misplace all forms of identification. And then there's the odd way Keene appears.
Yeah, it's on a few clothing tags, but it's written differently each time. T. Keene, Keene. Like, someone wasn't even trying to be consistent.
Almost like a red herring.
Leading them on a wild goose chase.
Exactly. And they did chase it. They looked for any Keene who matched the Somerton Man's description, but nothing. A dead end.
So frustrating. And then there's the thread. Remember that stenciling brush from the suitcase?
An unusual item.
Very. Well, they find this really unique type of thread in the suitcase. And get this. It's a perfect match to the thread used to repair a tear in the Somerton Man's trousers. Isn't that like finding a fingerprint?
You'd think so. A direct link.
Right.
They track the thread back to the manufacturer.
Dead
end. No useful leads. It's a recurring theme in this case, isn't it?
It's like every time they get close, the trail just vanishes.
It's like they're in a maze, right?
Yeah.
Every turn promising a way out, but it just leads to another dead end. And then there's the inquest. The authorities are trying to make sense of it all, and, well, what they find just raises more questions.
Right. You've got this unidentified man, strange clues scattered about. They needed some answers. And the coroner ruled it an unnatural death, possibly from poisoning.
Which, of course, makes it even more suspicious.
Absolutely. But here's the catch. They could never pinpoint exactly what killed him. No traces in his system.
Makes you wonder about the toxicology back then, you know?
Oh, totally. Like, what if it was something exotic, something they couldn't even detect at the time?
Precisely. Or even something specifically synthesized, designed to be untraceable with their methods.
Okay, so now we're talking next-level stuff. Like, this wasn't just a random act. This was planned.
Potentially. And that's a chilling thought, isn't it? Someone going to those lengths.
Okay, so get this, we're back to that suitcase, right? Hidden away in a secret pocket, almost like an afterthought. They find a tiny scrap of paper. 2 words. Tamam should.
Talk about a curveball. Tamam should. It's Persian, you know.
Persian. Okay, now this is getting interesting. What's it mean?
It means ended or finished. And it turns out those words are from the very last page of this book of poems, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam.
Hold on. A Persian poem on an unidentified man on an Australian beach. This is like something out of a spy movie.
Right. And get this, someone actually came forward with a copy of the Rubaiyat, and guess what?
Don't tell me.
It was missing that exact page, the Tamam should page.
But no way. Are you kidding? This can't be a coincidence.
That's what they thought. But hold on, there's more.
More. Of course there's more. We're talking about the Somerton Man.
On the back of that book, there were these faint indentations, 5 lines of them, and they looked like letters, seemingly random letters, like a code.
Ooh. A secret code. This is insane. Okay, so we've got A possible poisoning victim, a cryptic note, a book of poetry, A&D, a secret code. Did anyone ever figure out what it meant?
That's the thing about this case. It just keeps getting more bizarre. Despite decades, I'm talking decades, of people trying to crack this code, the best code breakers, military intelligence, even amateur sleuths, nothing. It remains unsolved.
You're kidding. All this time. And that code is still a mystery.
A total mystery. It's like it's taunting everyone.
So frustrating. But what does it mean? Was it connected to his death, or was it something else entirely?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's easy to get lost in all possibilities. But let's not forget about the human element here. Remember that phone number they found tucked away in the Rubaiyat?
Oh yeah, the phone number. It belonged to a nurse, right? Jessica, wasn't it?
Jessica Thompson, that's right. And wouldn't you know it, she lived just a stone's throw from Somerton Beach.
Okay, so she's local. What's the connection, though? Did she know him?
Well, that's the interesting part. She denied knowing the Somerton Man. But there are some inconsistencies in her story. Some things that just don't add up.
Like what? Give me the details.
For starters, the detective who showed her the death mask, he said she had a very strong reaction. Described her as looking shocked, almost like she was about to faint.
Wow. Sounds like she recognized him, but couldn't or wouldn't say anything. So what was her explanation for the phone number being in that copy of the Rubaiyat?
She claimed that she had given a copy of the Rubaiyat to an army man she knew a while back, and he did confirm that he had a copy. But here's the kicker.
There's a kicker. Of course there is.
His copy still had the Tamam Should page. So where did this other book, the one with the missing page and the phone number, come from?
Okay, that's definitely suspicious. But what would her motive be to hide anything? Was there something going on between them, like romantically?
That's one possibility. But then it gets even more complicated. Decades later, Jessica's own daughter claimed that her mother did know the Somerton Man and that she had taken that secret to her grave.
Wow, a love affair, a cover-up. I mean, no wonder this case became such a sensation. It's like something ripped from the pages of a mystery novel.
It's the perfect storm of intrigue, right? You've got this unidentified man, a cryptic code, whispers of espionage, and then you throw in a possible love affair gone wrong. It's no wonder the public went wild with theories.
Absolutely. Some people thought he was a spy, right?
Yeah.
Caught in some Cold War drama. And those theories only got more intense when the Magnosson case popped up a few years later.
Right, the little boy.
Yeah, 2-year-old Clive Magnosson found dead under, really suspicious circumstances. And get this, his father had actually tried to identify the Somerton Man years before. Said he recognized him.
Adding fuel to that conspiracy fire.
Totally. It's like, what if someone was tying up loose ends, silencing anyone who got too close to the truth? It's easy to see how that story captured people's imagination.
Oh, for sure. But for decades, the Somerton Man case was basically a collection of dead ends, no matter how promising they initially seemed. But then came these huge advances in technology, and suddenly, cracking this cold case seemed possible.
And that's where researchers like Masij Henneberg and Derek Abbott come in. They used cutting-edge science to uncover new leads in this decades-old mystery. It's fascinating.
It really is. Henneberg, for example, he focused on this seemingly insignificant detail, the shape of the Somerton Man's ears.
The ears. What about them?
Well, he noticed this really rare feature, this distinct formation of the Simba, which is the upper ear hollow. It's uncommon, and it's hereditary. And guess what?
Don't tell me. Jessica Thompson's son.
Bingo. Robin Thompson, he had the same unusual ear feature.
Okay, so now we're talking. Not only did they live in the same area, but they shared this rare physical characteristic. This feels big.
It was a huge lead, but there's more. Robin also had something called hypodontia. It's a genetic condition that affects tooth development. Some teeth are missing or underdeveloped.
Okay.
And just like with the ear, the Somerton Man, he had the same dental anomaly. Statistically speaking, the chances of two people, let alone a potential father and son, having both those rare traits, almost impossible.
Wow. It sounds like they were finally closing in on the Somerton Man's identity after all these years. Did they ever get Robin's DNA to confirm it for sure?
Unfortunately, Robin passed away in 2009, before they could do a DNA test.
Oh, man. So close.
Yeah, right. But here's another twist. Derek Abbott, the researcher who'd noticed the ear similarity, he actually ended up marrying Robin's daughter, Rachel.
Get out of here. It's like this case was woven into their family history or something.
I know, right? And while they haven't been able to get a direct DNA comparison from the Somerton Man's remains, Rachel's DNA does link back to the Thompsons. So even if there is a family connection, it might be a lot more complicated than anyone initially thought.
It's like every answer just leads to more questions with this case. But then there's the 2022 breakthrough. After all this time, Professor Abbott announces that he believes he's finally identified the Somerton Man.
It's a name that, while we haven't discussed him directly, does connect back to something we talked about earlier, those keen tags found on the suitcase. Professor Abbott believes the Somerton Man was Charles Webb, an electrical engineer from Melbourne.
So we're talking about a man who was estranged from his wife, disappeared, and just happened to have the name Keene associated with his belongings. How did they finally connect those dots after all this time?
Well, it was a long shot, but Professor Abbott and his team, they were able to get a tiny DNA sample from a few strands of hair
Oh, from where?
from the original plaster cast of the Somerton Man's head. They compared the DNA to these genealogical databases and found matches to distant relatives on both his mother and father's side.
Incredible. After 75 years of speculation, the Somerton Man finally has a name. Carl Charles Webb. But does that really close the book on this case?
That's the thing about mysteries like this. Even with a name, even with scientific confirmation, some questions might never be fully answered. We might never know for sure what brought Carl Webb to Somerton Beach that day, what his connection to Jessica Thompson truly was, or what secrets that coded message might hold.
It's almost poetic in a way, that even with all our advancements, some mysteries just remain out of reach, forever captivating our imagination, reminding us that some stories, well, they're just destined to remain untold. So what do you think? What sticks with YU from the Somerton Man case? Is it the mystery of his identity, the code, the possible love affair, or is it something else entirely? Let us know. Hit us up on Twitter or Instagram @TheDeepDivePod. And if you want to dive deeper into the Somerton Man case yourself, remember all the sources we use are linked in the show notes. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never be afraid to dive deep into the unknown.